Hello, my name is Michael Kelley, and I am a candidate for City Council in the 5th District at large in Kansas City. The three planks that I want to emphasize for listeners, number one is infrastructure, so working to improve our roads and sidewalks, but also asking the question, who are we building all of this for? Neighborhoods, working on issues related to quality of life, as well as addressing the ongoing challenges we face with affordable housing and houselessness, and finally, sustainability. How can we make Kansas City a leader in the fight against climate change? So I think what everyday voters should know about me is that I am the only candidate in this race who has experience moving legislation through the body that we both hope to represent. So when it comes to policy, I am someone who helped to craft and get adopted the city's Complete Streets Ordinance, which helps to improve multimodal transportation over time in Kansas City. When it comes to planning, I was vice chair of the Climate Protection Steering Committee and helped to develop our city's climate protection and resiliency plan, which will guide our efforts to become carbon neutral by the year 2040. And when it comes to individual projects, I have supported efforts to bring federal funds back to Kansas City via the bipartisan infrastructure law, including with the Reconnecting Communities pilot, in which Kansas City received just over $1 million for planning and reconnecting the West Side neighborhood of Kansas City. Top three goals if I am elected, I want to focus, number one, on implementing the city's Vision Zero Action Plan. The Vision Zero Action Plan, for listeners, is the plan that we have developed as a city to work to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries by the year 2030. It is something which disproportionately harms Black and brown people as well as low-income communities, and so that is one thing that I really want to focus on. The second thing, as I had mentioned earlier, is working to implement the short-term implementation steps of the Climate Protection and Resiliency Plan. We have goals that we can begin working on today to help us to lower our collective carbon footprint, and that's something that I really want to be focused on if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. And the final thing is working to create more affordable housing and more housing options for our unhoused neighbors. As many people know, housing is a challenge for many people in Kansas City, and there is more that we can and should be doing as a city, and I hope to work with other members of the City Council to bring forth solutions that not only create more affordability, but more options for more people in Kansas City. Sure. So there's really kind of three things that I want to focus on. Number one is investing more in public engagement. Two is creating a more accessible Kansas City. And number three is taking a co-governance approach. So number one, with investing in public engagement, one challenge that we have consistently had both in the Northeast and across Kansas City is that we do not invest enough in public engagement opportunities for our staff. With Public Works, for instance, there are a number of different ways that we could be doing things beyond the simple mailer goes out to the people immediately impacted and we'll have one or two public meetings. We should be doing things such as traffic calming demonstrations and walk audits to really understand what the challenges are with our built environment, and that's something that I want to promote if I am elected. The second thing with regards to expanding accessibility. So one of the challenges that is evident, not just here in the Northeast, but increasingly in parts of like the Northland, for instance, is that we are growing in terms of our diversity, and that means that there are more families, more people who English may not be their first language, or who may live with some sort of disability, which makes participating in typical public engagement opportunities difficult. So I want to invest more in translation services for people who may speak Spanish, who may speak Swahili and other languages other than English, as well as more sign language opportunities for people who may be deaf or hard of hearing. The final thing is with regards to co-governance, and I think this is the most important thing to emphasize, that it is not just one person, it is an entire city that is working to make our city better. And so we can't just elect people who have ideas. We have to elect people who understand what it is like to work in a collaborative manner. I am someone who has done that both with my day job as the policy director for Bikewalk KC, as well as the various volunteer opportunities and appointed roles I've had with the city. And that is the approach that I hope to bring to City Council if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. So within the first 30 days, I want to begin work on developing legislation to tackle source of income discrimination. Within 60 days, I want to focus on introducing legislation regarding ranked choice voting, and within 90 days, I want to introduce legislation regarding public testimony. So with regards to the source of income discrimination, source of income discrimination, for people who may not be familiar, is that when landlords turn away people from housing opportunities because they happen to have a voucher, what's commonly referred to as Section 8, officially known as housing choice vouchers, and that's something that we had tried to eliminate when we adopted the city's tenant bill of rights, but was unfortunately left on the cutting room floor. I want to revisit that and see what needs to happen so that we can begin to move the needle on getting something passed to protect those users within our housing industry. The second thing is that at the 60 days, ranked choice voting. So ranked choice voting is a system where rather than voting for one person in an election, you are ranking all of the candidates in a given race. If no one gets a majority, ballots are reallocated to the next choice on someone's list until one candidate receives a majority of votes. This is something which, if we were to implement, would not only save Kansas City taxpayers about $600,000 every 4 years, but has the opportunity to help increase turnout. In the primaries that we just had, there were only about 13% of eligible voters who participated. That is abysmal, and we need new ways to increase turnout, and I think ranked choice voting is one way to do that. The final thing is with regards to improving public testimony. So if you've ever been to City Hall to testify for or against something, you know that you have to fill out a comment card to be able to do that. Even though you fill out that comment card, there is no incentive or rule for the city council committee to follow that, no matter how many people may sign up for something. And so it has sometimes been used as a stalling tactic to silence certain people from being able to speak. I believe that we should be prioritizing the voices of people who take the time to come to City Hall, and this legislation would be a step towards making that more of a reality.
So those are